There was a little star. Main sequence, yellow-green, smaller than average. It was a star that we were aware of, but was mostly just a dot on our charts. Something that only the astronomers had to account for in very niche simulations. It fluctuated in luminosity occasionally. It had 2, perhaps 3 gas giants of significant size, although curiously, smaller than the average gas giant one might run across. Overall, a system much more interesting to xenogeologists than astronomers, but much too far away to be studied. Space is vast, vaster than anyone can conceive, and so even a close star is much farther than is practical to travel to. It actually took 7/8 of an orbit to realize that it had gone missing. Not instantly, but as close as one can get in stellar terms. It had dimmed and disappeared over the course of 1/10 of an orbit. It's funny how the absence of a thing can be much, much more interesting than the thing itself. Like the bauble that your children might make to celebrate a warmer morning than usual. It rings and dangles and is all well on its own. You leave it on a shelf by a door and forget about it. So do the children. But when it goes missing, suddenly they care much more about it than they ever did while making it. And their caring makes you care. The astronomers suddenly cared very, very much about the little star's disappearance. This made the media care too. And for dozens of orbits to come, it was the spotlight of the astronomy scene. Time is a fickle one though, and over time the little star became a note in the history logs. The existence of the little star was debated. Perhaps, it was said, the various cameras malfunctioned and projected a duplicate of a star where it was not. More interesting than the ones who postulated the star hadn't existed were the ones who said that the star hadn't vanished at all, that it had been aliens. A megastructure of some sort, a sphere around it to collect its energy, or even a spacecraft of gargantuan size that interposed itself between us and the little star. Such fantasies were ridiculous. In general though, it remained a scientific mystery, a wonder. Some little star that one day we would send an expedition to and determine where the star went, and then the mystery would be solved. I was impatient. I wanted the answers, and I wanted them without an expedition that I would never reach. The trail was 78 orbits cold, but a coalition had already been formed. 4 or 5 species, depending on how you counted it, had already made an entire institution around finding the star, unraveling its secrets. They were set to send out a ship, dozens of orbits before any government was. I joined. I helped. And I was critical in making the biggest discovery of them all. We had known that the star had 2, maybe 3 gas giants of significant size. They were smaller than usual, one on the small side of large, another on the large side of small, and then another that was decisively small. Or at least, that's what we had known, recorded, and left in the records over 2200 cycles ago, when our lives were short and our ambitions many. There was a species though, with an older history. They had much to teach us, about many things, and we figured that the least that we had to learn of were their star charts. And for the most part, we were correct. But to those at the institution, searching for that missing little star, it changed everything. For a mere 2600 orbits ago, that star had another gas giant, smaller than the other 4. It was difficult, but by charting various measurements of the star's luminosity with time, I headed a group that reached an unprecedented conclusion. Once upon a time, the little star had 4 gas giants. 2400 cycles ago, the smallest of them vanished. 2100 cycles ago, the next smallest vanished. 1900 cycles ago, the second largest. 1800 cycles ago, the largest. Gone. We looked for this phenomenon in other stars. For the large part, we found nothing. Yet we found it again, and there was a pattern. There were stars near the little star that had gas giants and then didn't. The ones closer to the little star lost theirs earlier than the ones further from it. The rate at which these planets disappeared radiated outward consistently until they noticed that there was a star a mere 700 light orbits away that had, oh so recently, lost one of its gas giants. It was because of my successes in this field that I was called to a National Security Council 98 orbits after the little star first disappeared. There was another star system, a trinary system. It was the closest to the little star, and when they called me, it was because one of the stars in the system had vanished. More so than that, it was the second star in the system to do so. The system, once upon a time, had been a binary system with a third smaller star orbiting it. Now, it was one. The largest of the three stars was all that was left of the system. It slowly careened in a new direction, its orbital partner's sudden disappearance, flinging it off into space at an odd angle. My team set to work immediately, but we could do little more than determine that the remaining star's new direction was odd before it, too, vanished. People were concerned. I was terrified. But I had to know. We had to know. We modeled the rate of the vanishing of gas giants and sent a ship so that we could make it to a star on the edge of the sphere before the sphere expanded to reach it. Then, we would survey the system to discover where the gas giants went. I volunteered. They made me captain. In the half-orbit it took to reach the star distanced by 680 light orbits, 2 more stars vanished. It wasn't a scientific phenomenon anymore. It was the end of all things. There was a pattern. There was something that was eating something from that little star, and it was not satisfied even by planets. It was not satisfied even with stars. My crew was efficient. We set down a research outpost on the moon in a mere quarter orbit. And we waited. 4 orbits and 7 stars missing later, a fleet of ships warped into the system. It was an uncontacted species, presumably fleeing the vanishing stars. We audited their vast numbers. Hundreds of millions of relocated space stations and ships. They had been idealized for the journey, modular and capable of slotting together. Yet for their differences, there were many similarities between us and them. They even used the same form of faster-than-light travel. Massive drives that spooled together the space in front of them and ejected it behind them, warping the universe around them as they careened into orbit around the star and its planets. We spent half an orbit learning the other's language and ran into frequent translation errors when discussing concepts of home and our colony. We figured that it was a cultural thing. I suppose, in a way, it was. Author's name and the link to original text is in the description.